Well, we've reached the point in the game where things can open up a little bit. They don't have to teach you to use a new costume every level anymore, so now things can get a little more interesting mechanically at least. Not hilariously interesting by any means, but at least a little more interesting. The caves introduce some cool platforming things and meet new enemies like the little crystal bats. Here we have the classic rising water segment. The way drowning works in this game is if you're underwater long enough, you'll see white bubbles coming out of Mickey's mouth, and if they get going too fast, then, well, you'll take 1 heart of damage, reset the breath, and worry about that next time. It's really hard to die of drowning in this game. This is also a section that my siblings and I really hated for some reason or another. Just whenever we got here, we were always unhappy to be there. I think that's probably the main reason I played this so much as a kid, is because with my little brother and sister, like, they don't want to just sit and watch me play something, and taking turns playing something like Mario just wasn't nearly as fun as being able to sit down and play at the same time. This was really one of the few games we had where you're able to do that, so we ended up playing this to death. I mean, couch co-op is something that you just don't see much anymore. It really needs to make a comeback. The little waterfall section doesn't last very long, but pushes you forward. Remember, we always used to fight over this gold box. Usually shot it as the cowboy suit, but I prefer standard Mickey anymore. I like these crystal bats. It was kind of cool. Swoop down at you. And half the time you can kick them in the head, so that's a bonus. Bonk. Yeah, my Capcom instincts told me there was something down there, but I was wrong. Here's one of the cool things that the level does, not for very long. Let you knock these little crystals down and spikes to make platforms. Another crystal bat, gonna kick him. This was a section where often my siblings and I would take a bunch of damage just because we refused to work together to knock the platforms down. Also, like these, they kind of work like the snakes, extending temporary platforms. Another big heart over here. Not exactly very well hidden, just a hallway over there. Also a shop in here. I don't buy anything here because everything's sold out. An item is sold out when either you just can't hold anymore, like your full hearts and energy, or you bought them all in the case of the big heart. There's only a limited number of those that it sells. Ugh, that's embarrassing. Very simple jump, and I missed it. Coming up on the mini-boss. It's actually one of the more dynamic mini-bosses in the game, just in how much he moves around and how much the stage changes. He really only does 2 things. Either drills a hole in the ground, or knocks down more crystals. But this kind of keeps the fight from being the same for very long, because the terrain that you're fighting on keeps changing. And other than that, you just jump on his head, but you know, it makes for one of the more interesting mini-boss fights. It certainly beats the Fire Juggler. There's also another weasel. I'm not sure if these are classically Pete's henchmen or something, or it was just a useful animal to use in this case, but you actually see a lot of weasels as mini-bosses in this game. As we delve further into the caves, we hit a fossil motif. Little nautilus shells appear off the background and become those little guys. They bounce around and shoot their spikes and shoot their shell out at you as a spike. Another little secret area with a box up here. Just yank that one open and another life. Yeah, targets start showing up on all kinds of enemies after the haunted house level. Just saw one on an ant, and you can see some on future enemies. They're harder to shoot when they're not flying in the air, but if you duck and shoot from the right distance, you'll usually hit it. This egg can't hurt you, just shoves you around and knocks down those bones. There's not even a hole down there, it just kind of inconveniences you. And, believe it or not, we've arrived at the boss. probably guess what he is if you're looking close at the background. There's another one I prefer to fight is Standard Mickey, just because it gives you a lot of stuff to toss around, and doing so actually helps keep the boss field clear of other enemies, so you don't get overwhelmed. But yeah, we have a dinosaur. Most closely resembling like a brontosaurus, so I don't know why it's so angry. The things on its back come alive and wander around at you. You pop them in the head, avoid the tail. The gas that it breathes doesn't actually hurt you, it just shoves you around, trying to push you into the spiky tail. But the tail's not always there, so sometimes the breath is just annoying. He was one of the bosses we always enjoyed fighting when we were playing together as kids. Dinosaurs are awesome. Pretty much why. Plus all these little dudes to jump on, so there was always something for somebody to be doing, unlike, say, the Ghost, where the first person to shoot it gets to do the damage and the other person just kind of sits there, waits around. Yep, the breath's shoving me right back into where the spiky tail would be. And there it is. Yep. But yeah, just keep either tossing the little back knee minions into his face or jumping on his head when he makes it available, and he'll go down. There's no time limit, which is kind of implied by the fact that he's walking forward, but he doesn't end up going anywhere. He's just walking. Kind of works through the atmosphere, I guess, but it's another one of those things where I'm not sure why they bothered, if they weren't gonna put a time limit on it or something, or change the fight when he walks far enough. Should be one less hit here. No. I think that's another reason we like this boss so much, is it lasted a lot longer than most of the other ones. But down he goes. The next level is probably my favorite in the game, up there competing with the last level. It's just a really neat atmosphere that the level manages to create, and the boss is probably the most unique in the game. You don't kill him by jumping on his head, so you've got that to look forward to. Until next time.